Welcome to the NetSuite Software Edition course. This lesson provides implementation considerations and best practices to keep in mind before you begin your implementation. At this point, you might be wondering about some best practices for implementing NetSuite Software Edition, such as, what are the best practices for renewals automation? What should we be thinking about before we migrate historical install-based records? What should we consider before we configure the item record for future transactions? This lesson will answer these and other questions about implementing NetSuite Software Edition. To help ensure the success of your implementation, we examine implementation considerations for two key areas for renewal automation. To ensure the NetSuite Software Edition is set up correctly for all future transactions, we'll go over best practices and considerations for proper item configuration. Then we'll examine install-based migration to help you maintain historical data in the NetSuite Software Edition. At the end of this lesson, we'll go over some general considerations for setting up the NetSuite Software Edition. First, let's look at renewal automation, which is a critical piece for consideration when setting up the NetSuite Software Edition. Effective renewals automation hinges on the proper configuration of the item master, and specifically for future transactions. If applicable, completing the historical install-based migration is also necessary. We look at both of these in more detail later in this lesson. First, we look at the unique ways that NetSuite Software Edition handles renewals automation. Co-termination is mandatory for renewals and occurs upon renewal only, not on a new order. Co-termination proration uses earliest end date or latest end date. These concepts are covered in the renewals automation lesson. 90 days is the default window before the renewal becomes active, although this is a value that can be configured. 90 days is the sweet spot for companies, as a longer window doesn't capture all the information from the install base needed for the renewal. A shorter window does not give enough time for your company to prepare for the renewal. However, for companies with business-to-consumer models, such as credit card companies that have high-volume monthly renewal businesses, this default can be adjusted. Sales order is the preferred renewal transaction type, which is key to downstream billing. Invoice as a transaction type impacts the general ledger, so is discouraged. Opportunities or quotes as the transaction type may be appropriate if the renewal must be negotiated by sales. However, keep in mind that no revenue recognition fields or start and end dates can be entered on these type of transactions. This means manual processing must be done for the order. Next, let's look at item master configuration to support future transactions. Proper configuration of items is critical for accurate renewals automation. This ensures NetSuite Software Edition is set up properly for all future transactions. Item category, quantity type, and product line are three item fields that together define the software asset. These were introduced in an earlier lesson. The item category field differentiates between a perpetual license and a term license, maintenance, and support. Perpetual licenses are commonly paid in full upfront and never renew. Term licenses have a start and end date and need to be defined. A monthly or annual price must be assigned to the term item. The annual price will be converted to a monthly list rate on the sales transaction and stored on the install-based record as a monthly rate. This ensures that new and renewal transactions are priced correctly. For both perpetual and term licenses, the billing schedule is separate and can be structured differently to occur quarterly, annually, and so on. Maintenance contracts offered with perpetual licenses need to be set up to support renewals, functionality, and reporting. Support contracts offered with term licenses need to be set up as well. Placing an item within an item category will affect the item's lifecycle through new transactions and renewal transactions. The following categories do not factor in renewals without configuration or customization changes processed as renewals. Services, training, other, parent item. Quantity type is related to the previous item category field and provides an additional layer of definition. It differentiates between products, modules, maintenance or support contracts, and users. At least one product needs to be defined, as this creates a product and install-based record for the initial sale. Any follow-up sales within the product line creates another install-based record tied to the parent product record. Modules represent additional functionality and cannot exist without setting up a product record. Contracts are associated with maintenance or support and need to be assigned to item category maintenance or support. Start and end dates are included for renewal automation. Finally, two different types of users are provided for reporting purposes. A product line is a family of items that are organized around one product. These items might include product, module, maintenance or support contracts, and users, which are defined using quantity type and associated to a product line. The flagship product may be represented by multiple items that have a serial upgrade path. For example, NetSuite Small Business to NetSuite One World. It is recommended that all items be assigned to at least one product line. If you plan to use the maintenance support as a percentage of license feature, product line assignment becomes critical for the proper automatic calculation of maintenance support by product line. Classification of product lines within the item record also provides an additional level of summary reporting. With Item Master correctly configured, NetSuite is set up for install-based automation for future transactions. Now let's look at some considerations for setting up NetSuite for supporting your historical install base. Historical install base migration requires that NetSuite is set up properly for your company's historical transactions and for renewals. Items must be fully configured and customers imported. Because QuickBooks Import deletes all data and configurations, QuickBooks Import is not supported with the Software Edition. A product must be registered against each build to, not just modules and users. When completed, the install base can be used to generate renewals. Once the install base records have been imported, running a scheduled suite script creates product records and updates the install base record with the product internal ID. The programs that must be run following install base conversion are R11, create product and map with IBR, R04B, full sync R, on-demand, heavy. Customers who wish to convert detailed sales transaction history can consider importing sales orders to generate both invoices and install base records. However, conversion of an install base record is much simpler than conversion of an order, and this approach should only be taken if consistent with overall conversion objectives. With these tasks completed, renewals automation should work correctly. Finally, some additional considerations to keep in mind. NetSuite Software Edition is currently available only for the US edition. Multiple currency supports only one price book, and advanced inventory is not supported. Some tasks need to be manually completed. These include credits, upgrades or downgrades, end-of-life programs, and uplift caps. Uplift caps are limits to year-over-year increases due to percentage increases in the cost of living and so on. While there is the ability to set a percentage uplift to renewals to reflect year-over-year increases due to inflation, an uplift cap is a manual task in NetSuite. Default behavior in NetSuite is to apply the percentage uplift to each renewal unless edited. Thank you for taking this lesson on considerations for implementing NetSuite Software Edition. We look forward to you joining us for more NetSuite training. Please review the other lessons in this series and complete the evaluation for this lesson. We appreciate your feedback.